Hey everybody, it is John the Comic Guy, and today I'm a record guy because Krista and I just went out yard sailing, and we went to a house that we saw posted on Facebook, and they had records, a stack of them, and they were selling them for $1 a piece. So we bought 40 records, so I'm going to flip the camera around, and I'm going to show you the records that we bought for $1 a piece. Stay tuned. Okay, so these are the records that we got, $1 a piece. And obviously I got to clean these up. That's why I got these Lysol wipes to kind of clean them up before we even get them in the house. But Chicago Transit Authority, this is actually Chicago's first record. It was called they were called Chicago Transit Authority until guess who sued them? The Chicago Transit Authority. And of course then they had to change it to Chicago. So that's one we're going to sell. We have one better. This one I actually like. It's Odyssey. The big song is Native New Yorker. So I'm gonna clean this up, but that'll probably be in our collection. Sammy Hagar. This is Sammy Hagar. Might be his first record, but not sure if I have that. But again, we're Sammy fans. Rolling Stones, Tattoo You. Yep. That we have a good copy of. The Rolling Stones. And was this the one you were talking about? London. Yep. I'm sure we got a better copy of this, but we're going to sell that. Rainbow. Richie Blackmore's Rainbow. Always like that. Curious if this has Ronnie James Dio. Yes. Dio. That is a keeper. The Police Synchronicity, we have copies of that. Let's see. The Doors 13. Gonna sell that. George Harrison. I'll have to check that out. I have a feeling we got that, but that's in really sweet condition, so that may be an upgrade for us. The Allman Brothers. Always love to pick up some Allman Brothers. Everybody likes those guys. We'll end up selling this. Janis Joplin's Greatest Hits. I gotta see. I love that because it has Shrink on it. As did the Allman Brothers. I'll have to see if this is something that we have. If we don't, we'll keep that. Van Halen. At this point, I was just picking up any records that I know sell. So Van Halen. Paul Young. I'll have to check this. If you guys are 80s people, you know the name Paul Young. We'll have to check this out. I'll have to see if we own it. I don't know if we have a copy. Van Halen's first album. Can't go wrong with that. Oh, David Lee Roth there. We have multiple copies of that. The Beatles Revolver. Another one to be sold, but Beatles always do well. So for $1, couldn't beat it. Yeah, you gotta love it. Van Halen, again, another copy of it. Can't go wrong with that. I'll have to see. This is actually in pretty nice condition. That might be an upgrade for our duplicate or triplicate. Hey, Back in Black. Obviously needs to be cleaned up, but we're going to sell that. Have many copies of that. Boston, their second album, Don't Look Back. We have multiple copies of this in better condition, but that is in pretty nice condition. So again, I'm planning to sell these. Led Zeppelin's first album. We have multiple copies of that, but this is really in nice condition. So that may be, at least on cover perspective, an upgrade. Bob Dylan, Hard Rain. I think we have a copy of that, but certainly going to be sold. Cream, there you go. Yeah. That's going to be a seller. Yaz. If you guys like electronic music, Yaz is always good. We have this. You and Me Both. Erasure. We love Eraser. I'm going to put these aside. These are singles, but we're going to at least listen to them. The first single was Wild. The second single was Circus. This is Bronski Beat. I'm going to have to check this out. Truth, Dare, Double Dare. Oh, it's not a single. This is not a single. So this is an album. So I think Krista and I will have a fun time listening to that. The Age of Consent from Bronski Beat. Small Town Boy, I think that's the hit that we like. So, all right, looking forward to hearing that. ELO Olay. So this is their first greatest hits from 72 to 76. That's a nice copy. In shrink, I'm going to see if this is a better copy than we have. Tubular Bells from Mike Oldfield. What did you do? You wrote a report on this, or you did a short video on this in school and college?
I had to make a radio advertisement in college.
Oh, a college radio ad.
All right, music for it.
So you like it? You like this, right? Mm-hmm. All right, we're gonna. I don't know if we have a copy. That might be a better copy. Donald Fagen, Nightfly. I think we have a great condition copy. Might be in shrink, but I'm going to double check just because I might be having a senior moment. Boston, first album. We not only have multiple copies, I think we have 4 copies of it, and then we also have a picture disc of it. We don't need this. This is a nice condition, but we might as well sell that off. Ted Nugent. We're going to have to check the Nuge out. I think this is his first album, Ted Nugent, but like old Ted Nugent. Foreigner. We have I'm going to see if upstairs we probably have a much better copy than this, but this is sweet. Might be an upgrade for our duplicate or triplicate. Led Zeppelin, The Song Remains the Same. I know we have multiple copies of this. I just want to see if this is an upgrade. Even though the top, the cover is a little messy, it may be still better than one of ours. This, I think, was the find of this collection. Buckingham Nicks. Everybody loves Buckingham Nicks, and I've never owned a copy of it. So this is when they just went out on their own from the Fleetwood Mac days and did their own album. So I've never owned this. I'm looking forward to hearing that. That was the album that drew me right in. The Romantics National Breakout. This is their first album. I'm going to see if this is a better copy than the one we got. Deep Purple Stormbringer. Stormbringer. By the way, Stormbringer, if anybody is unfamiliar, that is from the Melnibonian lore, and Stormbringer is the sword from Elric. Elric's sword. Kind of cool. I don't think we have this, so I'm going to check it out. Queen's Greatest Hits. If anybody doesn't know me, I have so many copies of this, but this may be better than one of the copies we got, and I'm going to, I'll replace it out or add that to inventory. Same thing with the Steve Miller Band Greatest Hits. I'm going to check if this is a better copy than what we got, because obviously every song on on this record is great. Steve Miller Band Greatest Hits. Van Halen Women and Children First. I might have to check if this is better than one of our copies. I think we have 4 copies of this, and this hoarding tendencies is dictating that I keep on buying it. And if not, the copy that we don't keep, it'll sell easily. But Van Halen, my favorite band. Starcastle. These guys are, I think, a psychedelic band. Or Starcastle, I'm trying to think. 80s. Worth listening to. I hear a lot about these guys. Their covers are always very cool. So we'll check that out. And then this, Blind Faith. This is the Taboo cover, right? So not going to keep it, but we'll sell it. And I think I actually have a second printing or a subsequent copy where this is the front cover, but we're gonna check this out. And Blind Faith. So I'm gonna now clean all these records, put some stuff into inventory, let everybody know that they're available for sale, and then I'm going to ultimately show you at the end of this the records we're going to keep for our own collection. The first is Paul Young. So if you guys don't know Paul Young, or the name isn't like really obvious to you, he was on Band-Aid. If you remember in the 80s, they came out with the Do They Know? Sorry for the boys. It's Do they know it's Christmas time at all? Yes, he was on that. Parlay, No Parlay is actually his first album. Um, I don't know if I know any songs on there, but he was kind of a pop icon in the '80s, so I'm willing to give it a shot. The next, as Krista mentioned, she wrote a report in college on this. This is um, Mike Oldfield, Tubular Bells. Now, this is not the first copy of Tubular Bells I ever heard or had, but I've long since sold it, and I've checked, and I don't have a copy of this anymore. So I'm going to listen to it with Krista and see what the hubbub and her report was all about, and get a chance to listen to it with her. The next, Odyssey. The big song they had was Native New Yorker. That was big in the 70s. So this is the first time I've ever owned this album, and the first time I ever heard or had that song on vinyl, with the exception of probably a couple of the K-Tel records I own. But I never owned this Odyssey album before, and I guess it's a self-titled Odyssey. The next is Bronski Beat. Now, Truth Dare, Double Dare. I don't actually know if I know any of the songs on this, but Bronski Beat did have some hits, and I wanted to give this a listen to with Krista. But the song that they did most notably have was Small Town Boy, and that is on this, The Age of Consent. So now I'm obviously looking forward to listening to this, because that song is great. If you haven't heard it before, give it a shot. Bronski Beat, Small Town Boy. I gotta believe you heard that song. It's really good. Another '80s band that I like, and I never had any of their albums before, any of their vinyl, is Eraser. So Eraser, Wild, love it. And let me see, A Little Respect is really the song that I love from those guys, but doesn't appear to be on Wild. Let's see if A Little Respect is on Circus. Let's see. A Little Respect. That's a great song. You know, if you look at the back, it's kind of I'm gonna have to look, but I'm hoping A Little Respect is on this or one of these records, because that's just a great song. Now the next is an upgrade for me. I had this. This one is in better condition. Romantics, National Breakout. So good record. This is from, I think, either the late '70s, early '80s. Pretty good stuff, right? They have a couple of hits, but this was their first album, and I had it, just not in as good a condition. The next record, I was kind of shocked I did not have, and I have a lot of Beatles, right? I have multiple copies of Beatles albums. I have multiple copies of a lot of the solo Beatles albums, but I never had this one. But really looking forward to hearing George Harrison, right? Love the Beatles, and I typically love all of their solo stuff as well. The next is also new to me. Janis Joplin's Greatest Hit. I like Janis Joplin. I don't know if I've ever owned this and just sold it, but I don't think I had it, and it's in shrink. So again, Janis Joplin's Greatest Hits. Love having this in shrink. Another upgrade for me is ELO Olay. This has shrink, has hype stickers on it, just like the previous album. I had this album. I've actually had multiple copies of it, but Olay, ELO, hey, let's upgrade it with a copy in shrink. The next album, I actually had a copy, was trying to see if it was an upgrade. I must have sold it, right? I get into those grooves and I'm just selling stuff. And Donald Fagen, The Night Fly. I remember I used to like this record, so I'm not sure why I would have sold it, right? I must have had a senior moment, but I'm keeping it this time, and I think Krista and I will give this a spin. Night Fly from Donald Fagen. Good old Sammy. I obviously love his Van Halen stuff as well. Maybe not as much as the David Lee Roth stuff, but I'm a big Sammy fan. Now, I'm going to say this was an upgrade, but this album was an upgrade from my third copy, right? So this is my now new third copy. It's not perfect, but it's quite. I would say this is a very fine condition copy, but I have two nicer copies. You might ask, why am I keeping 3 copies of Foreigner's first album? I don't know. I'm a hoarder. I'm wacky that way. But kind of most notably that I think is kind of a funny story is Krista and I, we went to see Foreigner on their farewell tour in Atlantic City last year, 2024. We went with friends. Ironically enough, they're back to touring, right? Now they have, and last year they had no original members. I think on the encore they had, like Mick Jones might have come out. They played 2 songs with 2 of the original members last year. I heard that Mick and the other member are not playing with them or touring with them this year on their, would you call it a farewell tour? What up with that? I don't know. But we saw them on last year's version of the farewell tour. We're not going to see Foreigner without any of the original members on their 2025 farewell tour. But you know what? Let's see what goes on 2026. Maybe we're going to see them on their 2026 farewell tour. Good going. All right. The next is a duplicate. Obviously, the song remains the same. Led Zeppelin. This again is like our 3rd copy of it. It's not perfect, but it was still better than the other duplicate of a duplicate I had. So we're going to keep this. And again, 3 copies. Why do I keep 3? You know, somebody might make me an offer I can't refuse and I'll sell it. But for now, I'll keep it. Once again, a duplicate of a duplicate of a duplicate. But Queen's greatest hits. You know, a lot of you guys out there probably don't appreciate or like the greatest hits because, you know, and if you're one of the comic people watching, again, greatest hits sometimes get some disrespect, right? We audiophiles typically love their album as it was intended to be pressed and played. Greatest hits usually is fulfilling one of their contractually obligated records. It's put together sometimes with a little less fidelity, a little less love than their original album, but I like it. I have multiple copies of this, as I have multiple copies of most of Queen's records. But this is a greatest hits compilation, and I'm glad to have a 3rd copy. Another duplicate. I have multiple copies of this. A matter of fact, I just today sold a copy of this, but it's Van Halen's first album. I love it. Right, and sound off on the comment section. So, as you guys know, right, you guys who went to high school with me and college with me, you knew I'm a Van Halen fan. I love Van Halen. I love the David Lee Roth Van Halen, even more than the Sammy Hagar Van Halen. Who do you think has the best first album? So, I'm going to toss it out, and you know what? Maybe I'm going to put this, when this video airs, what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to post a question because my 3 records that I think should be up for the best for initial album. Obviously, Van Halen, Boston's first album. Yo, come on. Boston's first album. Sick album. And then I'm going to say the Cars' first album. Let me know in the comment section, what other first album do you think should go in the competition? Again, Van Halen's first album, Boston's first album, the Cars' first album. 3 of the best first albums in my collection that I've ever had, and I love it. Next is Deep Purple Stormbringer. So again, you comic people, Stormbringer. We all know Stormbringer is the sword of Elric, right? I think that's just cool lore, and I'm curious. I never had this, so I looked at my collection. I did not have this, so I gotta say this might be some mythical music from Deep Purple. So I think Krista and I are going to give this a spin. And by the way, I'm kind of going in the order of the albums as I appreciate adding them into my collection, right? So obviously, I love them all. Looking forward to hearing at least the ones that I haven't owned before. This I've owned. I've had it on CD, but This is just good music. In fact, this band used to be in grammar school, 1978, 1979, or maybe it was 1977 and 78. Steve Miller Band, The Greatest Hits. Yes, I have a better conditioned copy of this. Yes, this is once again a duplicate, but this is a great album. Now, the Steve Miller Band album that really took them over the top for me, that made me really think they were great, was Book of Dreams, right? Jungle Love, Jet Airliner, Swingtown. That in itself is almost a greatest hits album. But, hey man, greatest hits 74 to 78, great. I also have, if you're a Steve Miller fan and you don't own it, they also have Anthology, which is like kind of the previous greatest hits. It's a double album, but Steve Miller Band 74 to 78 greatest hits, good stuff, and I own multiple copies of it. Brand new to my collection. Star Castle, Fountain of Light. Prog is not my first place to listen, right? Like when you're talking Rush, I like Rush when they became a little bit more popish, right? When like Spirit of the Radio came out, that's when I really started digging Rush. But there's no doubt, I like Prog. I want to give Star Castle a shot because I've heard a lot of good things about him and looking forward to giving that a spin. The next, Ted Nugent. I believe this is Ted Nugent's first album. I never owned this before. I don't have a copy. This is in shrink with hype stickers. I always thought Ted Nugent was really cool. In particular, I always loved him in Damn Yankees, right? Because he's playing with Tommy Shaw. He's playing with Jack Blades from Night Ranger. So obviously Tommy Shaw from Styx, Jack Blades from Night Ranger. Just the combination of those guys is amazing. And for you comic guys who are watching, I always kind of found it interesting is when they came out with Damn Yankees, right? It was actually a hit. It came out with multiple hits on that record, right? When you have Jack Blades, Tommy Shaw, Ted Nugent, right? Well, these guys are talented musicians. However, grunge was coming out right at that time, and grunge was changing the direction of the music industry, and the record company actually paid them $1 million to not record again. Is that sick? Is that sick? For me, that's more than just a little bit of information because I love their music. I wish they came out with another freaking album. I love that. Nope, because the record company paid them off not to record again. What a tragedy that is, right? Again, I'm a Jack Blades guy, right? I'm a Night Ranger guy. Krista is by far a Styx guy. Who doesn't like the Ted Nugent? We're not going to have it. No. Thanks, record companies. Led Zeppelin, first album. Third or fourth copy of this, right? Matter of fact, I yanked my lowest grade copy of it, sold it. It was already sold today, so Brian came by and bought a bunch of the records that I got just yesterday. But this is a great record. Obviously, who doesn't know Led Zeppelin's first album? I won't go into it anymore. Other than that, we have multiple copies of it, and we love multiple copies of it. I'm down to two. So the next is, again, I'm gonna call it what it's called on the album. I would typically call it Rainbow, but Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow. What I think is so great about this particular album, Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow, is one of my favorite metal singers is on it. Ronnie James Dio. Do you guys remember that in the 80s? I think it was like WPLJ in New York. Their advertisements, it's just like the guys, Dio. Yeah, I love Dio. So I'm really looking forward to hearing this. This is gonna be one of those nights where we're kind of amping ourselves up, and I love Dio. The last but not least, the album I think of this collection. Drum roll, please. Thank you. Thank you. And by the way, guys, as a repeat, so you probably heard Krista playing the drums in the background. The drum roll that I cut into, that was from Disneyland. Where was that? The old MGM. Where was that? MGM? But that was in the Toy Story drum corps. It was great. So anyway, Buckingham Nicks, right? Lindsey Buckingham, Stevie Nicks. I've never owned this before. When I was flipping through the records, so it was really cool. I was flipping through the records. When I pull them out, I put them aside. Krista's always opening up and checking if the correct album is in the sleeve, right? So we're double teaming. That's great partners do, double teaming. And then I saw this, and it's like, whoa, I never owned a copy of this. So I'm really looking forward to owning this. This, for me, has been the record of this particular collection, just because I'm a Lindsey Buckingham, Stevie Nicks fan generally, and I've always heard a lot of great things about this album. I really look forward to hearing it. So, hey, everybody, if you guys like this content, I would encourage you to please hit the like button, make comments. In fact, I'm going to ask you, before you even end this video, make comments on who you think has the best first album. Again, I'm going to put that little poll saying Van Halen, The Cars, and Boston. But hey, maybe if you guys add some thoughts on a first album, again, this is all based on if it's a music that I love. All right, everybody, again, like, comment, share it, and if you don't mind, please subscribe. I thank you guys so much. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.